Well, the time is just gone 8:21 a.m. this morning on this day of Jummah. If you have just tuned in, we wish you a wonderful, a blessed Jummah, inshallah. And let us get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, this is quite an interesting development because we are looking at a community issue this morning. And we are talking about using the art of photography to preserve history. And we are talking about the 55-year history of the Roshni community through pictures. A lot of time, a lot of effort has actually gone in this project. But it is clear that for many communities, they have this rich history, and especially for those of us who have lived through the apartheid era, and we've lived in what is called our traditional Indian areas, and there was a sense of belonging, the sense of being together as a community, the challenges, the ups, the downs, and there is just so much that can be captured in the history of a community. Now, one such community is the community of Roshni, and we are now joined by Yunus Chamda, the author of this photography of this book that obviously encapsulates and captures this rich history of Roshni. Yunus Bhai, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jummah Mubarak to you and welcome.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jummah Mubarak to you and all your listeners as well.
Yes, there's one thing that we should not forget is forget our roots, forget our communities, and we know that many communities, like the community of Roshni, has got an extremely rich history. And for the new generation and for future generations, it is so important for them to actually understand, the community, the challenges. I mentioned the ups, the highs, the lows, the downs as well. And I'm sure looking at this book, the 55-year history of the Roshni community through pictures, there is a wealth of information that is captured in picture form.
Yes, certainly. I think that firstly, let me say that I think all communities have a story to tell. And yes, we've done this for the Roshni community, but I think that every single community out there has an interesting story to tell. You might want to tell the story a bit differently. And I'm encouraging communities to put together their histories. Some might want to do a narrative history if they do not have access to a collection of photographs. We've chosen to go this route for various reasons, mainly because of the impact that photographs make, but also for the way they carry the stories, and the way they have historical accuracy. And I think that was very useful, in relation to the photographs that we had. But yes, this is a project that tells the story of one community, and I hope it will encourage other communities to do the same.
Yes, and also, when one looks at you're talking about the other communities doing the same, and there have been similar challenges that many of our communities in what we called the traditional Indian areas during the apartheid era have had to face, and there have been racial prejudice. We've seen the struggles of people. We've seen the Group Areas Act. Me personally, I grew up in a little location called Germiston, and with the Group Areas Act, forced relocation, and again, picking up the pieces, building the communities. These are extremely important, Eunice.
Absolutely. So the events that you've sketched are very well captured in this book. You mentioned the highs and the lows, and that's very much what you will be able to pick up in this book. There are highs and there are lows. There are great moments of celebration, but there are also sad moments captured. In particular, you talk about the forced removals, because once the Group Areas Act was implemented, then communities were forced out of the areas in which they lived so that they could move into racially separate areas. And of course, you mentioned Germiston, and I'm sure Germiston also has a very rich history, and they were also subjected to the same kind of movement. But if you look at this book, which really starts around the early 1900s. I mean, we haven't just started the story in 1967 when Roshni was officially established, which is why we've called it the 55-year pictorial history. But in the book, we also have a chapter called The Origins of the Community. And the origins takes us back to the early 1900s. Now, when you look at the photographs and the stories they tell you how the Indian community developed over a period of time and how they negotiated all the challenge and obstacles that came their way. Not least of all, once the Group Areas Act came into being, then of course communities were forcibly removed and have to move out. And in the case of Vereniging, they had to move out of what was then called Top Location or Asiatic Bazaar. And of course, from the center of town itself, they were forcibly removed. The businesses in the center of Vereniging town in the 80s were forced out of the center of town and had to relocate to the southern end of the town in what was called an Indian Plaza. And in the book, we have photographs of the days when the authorities came and physically put a chain and a lock onto the doors of traders so they could stop trading in the center of town. And those are some of the, as you mentioned, the ups and the downs, and those are some of the community struggles.
Well, interesting you mentioned the term Asiatic Bazaar because this is exactly what Germiston was called as well, the Asiatic Bazaar. And I'm still trying to figure out the logic behind why they actually called it an Asiatic Bazaar. So there's a lot that, we have in common. Just looking at the compilation, take us through the compilation. How did it start? How did it go about? What were some of the challenges to put, all of this together? And then obviously, looking forward to actually what is contained in the book.
Yes, I mean the idea really started when three friends who had common interests, and I must mention that we had a very good friend by the name of Isub Gatu, who's now late, and then of course there's Harun Pochi, who's been very much instrumental in this project, and the three of us, had two things in common. One is we loved community history, and we just felt that there's a need to put this together. But the three of us also have a passion for photography, and so those two elements came together in how we conceptualized the book. It has taken an extremely long time. I mean, I started working on this project around 2007, but for the first 9 years, it was just a little bit here and there. But in the last 7 years, once we missed the 50th anniversary of Roshni, we really got cracking. And but then it's been 7 years of really intense work. We were very fortunate in that there's a couple of things that helped us to source photographs. The first was, that besides my own vast collection, Harun Pochi also has a great collection of photographs, and the late Isub Gatu also left us with a wonderful collection of photographs. So we had a pool of images to start with, and then we put the message out to the community and said, look, we're doing this project. If you have any photographs that you think would be of interest, please do submit them, whether they end up being in the archives only or whether they end up being in the book. Please send us your photographs. And over 150 people and families contributed um, uh, to the book. And I mean, we were able to unearth some amazing photographs hidden deeply under the bed in a box or in the top shelf of a cupboard.
Well, I'm sure, and I'm sure that's also brought back a lot of memories. But also at the same time, it is the history of a town, but it's all about the history of people that matters. And I'm sure that features very, very strongly. People who really matter, people who made their mark, and people who we will remember for various reasons.
So those that really made a contribution and were active in community life, inevitably we were able to find photographs of events and groups that show their involvement down the years in the life of the community. And it is really about the people. And those that made a contribution, certainly have been represented in the book. Uh, you know, perhaps not in a sense of balance, in that some may have made a massive contribution, but we were only able to find one photograph. So I mean, we couldn't create that perfect balance, but certainly the key members who contributed to building this community, they are certainly reflected in the book.
Yes, and I mentioned earlier on, Yunus, future generations, and this book going a long way, for the benefit of future generations, so that they can truly appreciate, they can truly understand what their predecessors, what their forefathers, and what they have actually gone through.
On that point, there was a very conscious decision that I made. I mean, when I conceptualized the book and I had a lot of these historical photographs, the one concern that I had, was that if we create a book that is really just historical, it would not have appeal for the young generation. I mean, what would make them want to pick up a book and go through these photographs, even if it contains photographs of their grandparents and their parents, but people obviously want to see their connection with the past. So I made a very conscious decision that this book was not going to be purely historical. And because it is the 55-year history, which ended in 2022, I had the opportunity in the last few years to also capture as many photographs as possible of the current state of the community. So there are many, many photographs in the book that are very recent. And so the young generation are represented in the book. Uh, Even their children, and in some cases grandchildren, are in the book, in some places. And this will encourage them to pick up the book, to see themselves, but in doing so, they would have to turn through the pages of the past. And so we will connect them with their heritage and their history.
Yes, now I see the launch. Is that taking place today?
That's tonight, yes.
All right, take us through the launch. What can be expected?
So if you arrive, the first thing that you will find is that there is a photo exhibition that is in the foyer. The photo exhibition is titled 100 of 55. That's the title of the exhibition. And what we have done is we've extracted 100 images from this book, which, by the way, contains more than 3,500 images. But we've extracted 100 images from the book, and we've put that up in a photo exhibition. So you can arrive, if you arrive early, even before the starting time of 7:45 p.m., you can go through the exhibition. After the exhibition, we'd like to start promptly at around 8 o'clock, at which point we will have a formal program where we will officially launch the book. I will say something. We do not have a lot of speeches. There's literally only two speakers on the agenda, and we both promise to be brief. It's myself and Harun Pochi. We'll say something, and we'll do a little bit of formalities. There's an award which we'd like to give out tonight called the Isub Gatu Photography Award. We'll hand that out. And by the way, we're also going to be auctioning book number one. And we already have a high amount, high interest in this book. And we hope that, that those in the audience would pledge, or would rather bid for the book, because it's all fundraising. And I must say, this entire project from start to end is a non-profit project where we are using the book to leverage funds for community organizations. And then there's going to be a lot of food stalls and other activities. So we're really making it a celebration.
Well, Yunus, I'm sure there is a huge interest in Roshni at this point in time. There must be a buzz as well, and I'm sure that it is going to be well attended. The launch will be well attended, and knowing the Roshni community, a united community, a community that will come together tonight to ensure the success of this launch.
Yes, we thank Allah Ta'ala for giving us this opportunity. All these things only happen with His will. And so we feel truly blessed, and we're really inviting other for people from out of town as well, to come and join us in this celebration. We'll adopt you as a resident of Roshni for the weekend, but please come and enjoy the event with us, because we really want to encourage more of these histories to be documented.
Well, certainly. Well, Jazakallah for that, Yunus, and I'm sure that many other communities can take a cue. They can take huge lessons from what you are about to do tonight and what you have been doing, as you mentioned, since 2007, since this project has actually started. And I'm sure it will inspire many other communities to encapsulate through photography this rich history and what these communities have actually experienced throughout their existence. So we wish you well, and also our best goes to Harun Pochi as well. And we make dua that Marhum, our brother, got to, inshallah, Allah Ta'ala fill his cover was Noor as well, because I know he's made a huge, a massive contribution to the project as well. So to you and to everybody else at Roshni, we wish you well on this project. Jazakallah as always for your time with us. We wish you a wonderful Jummah ahead as well. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Yunus Chamda, and I must say, I am truly inspired on this day of Jummah by what the Roshni community has achieved and what they're about to achieve through this launch this evening, which is taking place. And in fact, it's happening today at the Inyata Conference Center in Roshni. It includes a photo exhibition. There are stalls as well, and the launch of the book will be taking place. The time is just gone, 8:35. We're going to go for a break. We come back, we'll be joined by we'll be taking a look at Professor Haider Eid, and we are talking about an event that is taking place, and this is the Marimia Seeds of Resistance, and this is taking place at Sophia Town, a Unite Against Apartheid Israel.